you so much, Congressman Pocan. I hope everyone was taking notes and is going to do exactly what we just heard, because it's exactly what we need to do to win. I am honored and humbled to introduce our next speaker. From serving on Newark's City Council after learning as a Rhodes Scholar and a scholar at Yale Law School and serving as an All-American football player, a varsity football player at Stanford, from getting elected after an extraordinary first run, getting elected as the mayor of Newark, to winning a New Jersey Senate seat and emerging as one of the nation's foremost and most effective leaders in criminal justice reform, who helped craft one of the most sweeping changes in a generation with the First Step Act of 2018. As a public servant who sits on the Foreign Relations Committee, the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, the Judiciary Committee, and the Small Business Committee, we've all seen Cory Booker's extraordinary work in service of the public. And in the presidential campaign, our whole country saw that his voice and his vision are an essential national resource, a national treasure. I want to tell you a little story about the power of that voice. In the summer of 2017, the prospects for protecting the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid looked dark. A Senate vote was looming. And in that dark moment in June, Senator Cory Booker had an idea. He has a legendary selfie game. Anyone in DC has probably run up to him at one point or another, and he's extended his arm and taken a terrific selfie with that person. In this moment, he put his arm around his friend John Lewis, and he pulled out his phone and he started a Facebook live stream that would take things to a whole new level by running for hours that night. They went out talking on Facebook Live and went and sat on the steps of the United States Capitol. And for a while, it was just the two of them, Cory Booker and John Lewis, sitting there talking about healthcare, talking about what healthcare meant in their own lives. And as time passed, some workers in the Capitol came out and stopped by, and they were both some of the kindest people you'll ever meet. So they said hello and they started talking to them, and Senator Booker brought some of those workers onto the live stream to tell their own stories. And slowly, a crowd began to gather. I happened to walk by the Capitol probably an hour after they'd started. And I saw this crowd of people and I wondered, what was that? So I wandered up. And what I saw was, by that point, 5 United States senators sitting on the steps outside the Capitol, about 20 staff members and different people. And Senator Booker kind of creating out of nothing this moment where one after another, people told these intensely personal and amazing stories about healthcare, about the fight for the Affordable Care Act, the fight to expand healthcare to everyone. And he kept bringing people in. And the crowd gathered, and the crowd gathered. Night fell. And suddenly, we all looked up, and there were hundreds of people there. It was a spontaneous protest, a rally, a kind of clarion call, something I'd never seen happen before, a completely spontaneous event. There were probably a dozen of the nation's senior-most lawmakers who spoke that night, and dozens of champions, of activists, of organizers, of people who'd never spoken publicly before, now speaking on a national broadcast, all emceed and masterminded by Cory Booker. And the story of that night ricocheted on social media. It spread through the press, and the crowd was roaring on their feet, chanting by the end of that night. And I think for everyone who was there and everyone who saw it, it was this moment of igniting hope that we were actually on the brink, we didn't know, maybe of defeating this attack on our healthcare, maybe of laying the groundwork for building the kind of country where everyone gets the healthcare that they deserve. Cory Booker's an igniter of hope, an igniter of movements, and I'm so grateful that we all get to be in a country with him where he brings that extraordinary vision and breadth and depth of spirit to the work that all of us care so much about. So I'm so excited and thrilled to welcome our next speaker, United States Senator, my friend, Cory Booker.
Ben, wow, that was really gracious. I've learned in life that what you say about others is more a reflection of who you are than who they are. And I just want to thank you for being a man of great grace. You were there. I got one of the best bear hugs I had during that crisis from you. If anybody has not gotten bear hugs from this great party chairman, I know we're in a time of COVID, but just like check off your bucket list of great hugs from good people who communicate great spirit. So Ben, thank you. And you called me up, or actually you texted me and invited me to be in this. I'm glad I came in early. I finished one of my interviews with Morning Joe and just tuned in to listen as I was going about my work and was moved. I think it was from everybody. I think you said Sally is having a birthday. So happy birthday to her. I got a chance to see my man, Michael Bennett. I see Sally waving. Sally, it's good to see you. I got you on gallery view, so I see you there. It was my pleasure to see Michael Bennett, who he's one of the, you wouldn't think of him as a senator. He doesn't speak politician. He's just a regular guy who loves this nation. All his life has been willing to fight for it. And Mark, the congressman who just spoke, I hope everybody's taking notes. I was going to my pen. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I'm going to say that to my people here in New Jersey. So I'm just really grateful here to be with you. And I want to, now that I've said all these nice things about Ben, I want to call him out because he got that story wrong. What was the sort of the moral magnetism of that night was not me. I was just a guy sitting next to a legend, which is named John Lewis. And maybe this is what I want to leave these incredible delegations, Minnesota, Wisconsin, South Dakota, North Dakota, and of course, mighty Michigan, where my mom was born, and carried my family out of poverty in the Great Northern Migration. My family moved up from the South, and my grandfather got jobs on the assembly line. This great a group of people from incredible states in an incredible nation. There is a truth about us that's really powerful that Martin Luther King said so eloquently in his letter to the Birmingham jail when he said that we are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. And I want to let everybody know how powerful we are. I know we see these names on TV and these folks in high offices, but we know the beautiful thing about this nation conceived in virtue that has spent its entire life trying to live up to those ideals, that we know that we are powerful, that in this democracy, we still are a nation where the power of the people is greater than the people in power. The tragedy often is that the most common way people give up their power is not realizing they have it in the first place. And so what I'm hoping is that we're all listening here, that we matter, we make a difference, we are powerful. And what we do in these last 75-ish days, if I'm counting right, between now and the election, it can have an impact, not just on the outcome of this election, but on generations yet unborn. And the reason why I love that Ben opened with that story is because I want to tell you a story about just how powerful we are in unexpected ways. So my parents both come from the South, as I said. My dad was born in the mountains of North Carolina. He used to tell me, son, don't tell people I was poor. Don't you dare tell them that, son. Tell them the truth. I was just Po, P-O. I couldn't afford the other two letters. And so my dad was this Po boy from North Carolina, grew up in the mountains. And his story is this story of human grace, human kindness. It was like a conspiracy of love of people that did for him when his mama couldn't take care of him. They took him into their home, treated him like family. When he never thought of college, it was public school teachers that demanded he focus on that dream. When he couldn't afford to go to college, a church collection came together to give him money to enroll in a historically Black college, North Carolina Central. When he got to Washington, D.C., activists, Black and white, helped him get his first job. When he did so well in his job, being the first Black person hired by IBM in the entire Virginia, D.C. area, he got moved up to New Jersey, to New York, to work in Manhattan, wanted to move his family to New Jersey. But every time he would show up in white neighborhoods with the best rated public schools, he would be lied to and told, oh, I'm sorry, this house is sold. You can't move in here, or because it's been pulled off the market. But he found local activists, Black folks and white folks from that community, white folks who said, this is not who we are, we're gonna change this. And they set up a sting operation where my parents would go look at a house, they would be told it was sold, and a volunteer couple walking behind them, white folks, would come up to see if it was really for sale. In the house that I grew up in, my father was told that it was sold. The white couple came and found out it was still for sale. They put a bid on the house, the bid was accepted. On the day of the closing, the white couple didn't show up, my dad did, and a volunteer lawyer, this mighty white man named Marty, And yet it wasn't over because a real estate agent gets upset, stands up and punches Marty in the face and sigs a dog on my dad. And let me tell you, as I was growing up in this beautiful home in this beautiful town, every time my dad would tell that story, the dog would get bigger. He was like, son, I had to fight a pack of wolves to get you in this house, boy. You better appreciate what you have. Don't you walk around this house like you hit a triple. You were born on third base. And so my whole life came, my parents told me, from the conspiracy of love, from American, doing for American, doing for American. Well, I went off, as Ben said, to Stanford on a football scholarship. I went off to overseas and studied ops, came back to Yale, get my law degree. My dad was not impressed. He's like, boy, you got more degrees in the month of July, but you ain't hot. Life is not about the degrees you get, it's about the service you give. And so I went about my career of service, city councilman, mayor. I'm the senator, one of the 2 senators from New Jersey. And I decided when I got to the Senate to do what a lot of senators do who have a high sense of self-regard. I decided to write a book. But and when your name is Booker, it's a lot of pressure, people, a lot of pressure. And so I go back to find those activists that helped my family move in. I mean, hell, I had to find out how big it was if I was going to write about it in the book. And I find the lawyer that organized the whole thing, a guy named Arthur Lessman. And I asked him all the facts from my chapter. I got it all. But then I asked him at the end, why? Why would you, as a white guy in the 1960s, help black families move into your neighborhood when people were afraid? There were fear mongers out there telling you that your real estate prices will go down or that there'll be white flight. And he just said, look, I know the day I made the decision, I was sitting on my couch watching TV. And the date, he knew the date, March 7th, 1965, 4 years before I was born. He said, I was watching TV and the movie was Judgment at Nuremberg. Most of America was watching that movie. And if you all know the date, I didn't recognize it right away. He said to me, something happened that night. They cut away from that movie to see breaking news. You see, something was going on in Alabama. And next thing you know, he's watching a bridge called the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And he's seeing Americans 1,000 miles away get viciously beaten. It is Bloody Sunday. And so what does a white man on a couch 1,000 miles away do? Does he just watch TV and say, that's a shame, somebody should do something about that? No, he is an American. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. He stands up and says, I got to go to Alabama. But then he realizes he's just started a business. He's barely making it. He can't close his business. Heck, he can't even afford a plane ticket. So what he decides to do is what is the American tradition. Use your power. He decided, I'm just going to do the best I can with what I have where I am. He realized that he could afford an hour of pro bono work a week, just an hour. And he calls around to see who might need a lawyer's help. And he finds this group of activists that are like, hallelujah, thank you, Lord, we need some help. And they go about putting together this sting operation. He says 65 turns to 67, 67 turns to 69. They got a really good plan going. He says, Corey, then I get this case file of a family in distress. They got 2 beautiful children. They're trying to move into this town, but they keep getting turned away. We went on to help them get in their home. And he goes, Corey, do you know the names on that case file? And I go, no, sir. He goes, well, the names on that case file, the 2 people, that couple, it was Carrie and Carolyn Booker, your parents. I'm sitting here today because years before I was born, there was a white man on a couch who, when his country was in a moral moment, he didn't allow his inability to do everything to undermine his determination to do something for the cause of his country. He stood up for America and he went to work. It may have just been an hour a week. He may have just been a volunteer, but he set in motion a set of dominoes that are the reason why I'm speaking to you today. Because we all are caught in that inescapable network of mutuality. We are tied in a common garment of destiny. We are one nation under God. What we do matters. We affect our neighbor and our neighbor's neighbor. And so we are in that moral moment again. And all of us, the activists on this call, we now have to ignite the urgency in others who are sitting on the sidelines. This is a time we got to get everybody on the field. We got to get every voice to lift. We have got to ignite that urgency and let everybody know that they are powerful and that together we cannot just vote out Donald Trump. That's not the end we seek. Beating Donald Trump is the floor. It is not the ceiling. It gets us out of the valley. But we as a nation have been called to go to the mountaintop. I believe that together, whether you're from Wisconsin or Michigan, whether you're from Minnesota, South Dakota, or North Dakota, or whether you're just a Jersey boy, that we are in this together. And when we stand together and work together, sacrifice together, then we will rise. Thank you very much, Ben. I'm grateful for you. Let's get Biden, let's get Harris, let's get them elected, and then let's keep on going until we rise all the way to the top as a nation. Thank you, everybody. Ben, I love you. I want my hug, man. I want my hug.
Thank you so much, Senator. Sending virtual hugs through the internet your way. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for bringing your hope, your spirit, and your vision, and your tremendous energy. Folks, it's okay if you skipped your coffee, because we just got something much more powerful than caffeine into our systems. That's the feeling of hope.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Senator. Anyone in the 50 states and the 7 territories who is elected chair of their Democratic Party can expect a phone call. And they'd be wise to save the number calling them, because it's going to turn into their lifeline. The call is coming from Ken Martin, the longest serving chair of Minnesota's Democratic Farmer Labor Party, now in his 5th term, and the president of the Association of Democratic State Committees, formerly known as the Association of Democratic State Chairs. The president of the chairs was a senior at Eden Prairie High School when he joined Paul Wellstone's US Senate campaign. That campaign, Paul Wellstone's example, inspired him to a life dedicated to the principle that we all do better when we all do better. And for 2 decades, Ken Martin played key leadership roles in campaigns including Dayton for governor in 2010, Hatch for governor in 2006, Kerry for president in 2004, Humphrey for secretary of state in 2002, and Gore for president in 2000. After he was elected chair in 2011, Chair Martin made a plan, not just for the 2012 election cycle, but for years to come. And since that time, Democrats have won every statewide race in the state of Minnesota. He's a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. He holds a BA in political science and history from the University of Kansas, and he and his wife, Jennifer O'Rourke, have 2 sons and live in Eagan, Minnesota. He is a mentor to all of us who work to build the strength of Democratic state parties around the country, a voice for local infrastructure, a champion of the idea that we win when we have all 3 legs of the stool: strong candidates and campaigns, strong independent organizations, and a strong party that all know how to work together. I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn from him every day, and for the late night calls he's willing to take with any of us who are facing challenges in our states. I'm so excited to introduce DFL Chair Ken Martin.
Thank you so much, Ben. And will you go on the road with me? That was a wonderful introduction. I need that every time. That's fantastic. Thank you. And I appreciate your leadership. Thank you for taking on this job. As many folks have heard me say in Minnesota, my governor, when he introduces me, says, Ken's got the toughest job in politics. It's the political equivalency of being a fire hydrant. And there's so much truth to that, right? You get none of the credit, all of the blame as state party chairs. But we do this because, as you heard other speakers say, this is not a job. This is our work. This is our life work. And it's really important for us to build the infrastructure that all of our candidates and our activists rely on every single day. So thank you, Ben. And, you know, thank you to all the delegates for joining us today, especially from Michigan and Wisconsin. We've been joined by our delegations from South Dakota and North Dakota over the last few days. And have enjoyed getting to know them. But thank you to Michigan and Wisconsin for joining us today. You know, there's 76 days until this election, or as our chairman Perez says, 76 days until the weekend. And truly, this is the final sprint. I know it's been an exhausting week for all of us. I thought maybe with the virtual convention, we wouldn't be quite as tired, but these are long days, but they are worthwhile days because we're learning, we are building virtual community, and we are creating the excitement that we need to come out of this election, out of this convention, ready and rallied and energized for this upcoming election. It is, of course, great to see my colleagues, both Ben Wickler and Felicia Martin from Wisconsin, Lavora Barnes and Mark Lachey from Michigan, as well as the chairs from North Dakota and South Dakota. So I don't want to speak too long because I get the chance to bring on a couple of our delegates to introduce our next and final speaker for the day. You know, one of the things that I appreciate about Senator Sanders is how he has inspired young people to become young activists, to become young political leaders like Nelsie Yang, who's the chair of our Sanders delegation, who ran for the St. Paul City Council after being inspired to action by Senator Sanders. And as I've shared with Senator Sanders before, my story is much like Nelsie's and these two young women that I get to introduce, because I was inspired almost 30 years ago by a young, bushy-haired college professor who no one knew named Paul Wellstone, who decided to run for the U.S. Senate. And every single day I do this work, I do this because of him inspiring people like Sally Miller and myself to actually make a difference in people's lives, to improve our communities. And as he always said, the famous saying is, we all do better when we all do better. But he understood, as Senator Sanders did, that we have to fight for people. We have to use the power we have when we have it to make a difference in people's lives. And so I get a chance now to introduce two of our youngest delegates to introduce Senator Sanders. Claudia Moses is a recent graduate of Egan High School, and she will be studying law at Stanford University in the fall. She has been attending DFL conventions with her grandfather, Jules Goldstein, since she was 9 years old, which is about 9 years ago. And Claudia and her grandfather are national delegates together for the first time this year. As a Sanders national delegate, Claudia is especially proud to represent Minnesota and the DFL party, and she believes that to combat pervasive injustice, more people need to care about and advocate for the well-being of folks who are different from themselves. And it's also my honor to introduce Rachel Zhang. Rachel is 18 years old, Sanders delegate from Rochester, Minnesota, and she'll be attending the University of Pennsylvania this fall as a freshman. In high school, Zhang wrote policy for the school district on racial equity, organized the largest Black Lives Matter protest in her city, and has been working to elect one of our great Senate campaigns down in Rochester. She's a firm believer in the power of collaborative action and youth impact. Rachel is a DFLer because the DFL party advocates for progressive social policies that promote equity for all. Please welcome Claudia and Rachel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Claudia Moses, and I'm here today because I feel that I have to be. As a biracial woman, an African American, and the daughter of an immigrant, I knew that Senator Bernie Sanders was the leader I wanted to be our next president. I've learned that in this country, when I see a system that just is not working anymore, it's my duty to speak about it, to educate myself about it, and to make change around it. Youth have made very clear the issues that are important to us. When our lives are threatened by loosely regulated guns in the places where we should feel most secure, our schools, we march for our lives. When the future of the planet lies in the hands of those more concerned with turning a profit than conserving our natural resources, we strike. And when we see human life being attacked in an antiquated, racially biased, and systemic manner, when we see law and order take priority over justice and peace, we take to the streets. Youth are loud, we're bold, and we will be taken seriously this November. I know that there's no time to waste in exercising my voice. Alongside my grandfather, I've spent years volunteering at state and local conventions, counting down the days until I was finally old enough to be a delegate and to tell people what I wanted from our government. I knew what my friends and I wanted out of our next president, and I knew that Senator Sanders genuinely wanted those same things for us. I was honored to be elected as one of the youngest delegates from Minnesota and to use my vote to support him. and I'm unbelievably honored to co-introduce him here today alongside Rachel Zhang.
Not me, us. An incredibly simple phrase, but one that truly changed my life. As a young woman of color, I often felt as if there was never a place for me in politics. It seemed as if there was a huge chasm separating me and my aspirations of making changes in my community. I always looked to others to make the change, never myself. But after 2016, things changed. I realized that I couldn't wait for someone to magically appear and cast away every problem I saw in my community. So I began organizing, speaking up, and educating myself on how to start initiating the change that I once looked to others to create, and I haven't looked back since. Running for national delegate was an incredibly daunting experience. I was juggling high school, lacked connections, and alone in the process. But I pushed through because it would be a disservice to Senator Sanders, who has fought so long and hard for those who have never been given a seat at the table. And it would have been a disservice to my younger self, who so desperately wanted more diversity of thought and representation in politics. The revolution he started has spread across my generation. Just within this past year, I've seen a phenomenal amount of growth, activism, and leadership within my peers. Without even meeting us, Senator Sanders has truly been a mentor to so many youth who have been inspired by his legacy. Change is coming, change is happening, and many changes await us in the future. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank Senator Sanders for inspiring me and countless others to fight for a better, more just future. I am elated, a little overwhelmed, and absolutely honored to introduce to all of you, the Bernie Sanders.
Rachel, thank you very much. That was, you have inspired me. Thank you very much for what you're doing. And let me thank Claudia and Ken for those wonderful words as well, and to all of my friends in Minnesota. And I gather we have some folks from Wisconsin, Michigan, North Dakota, and South Dakota with us as well. Thank you all. To those of you who have supported me from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being part of the political revolution. And to others, we know at this moment we are united in going forward to defeat the worst and most dangerous president perhaps in the history of this country. To Claudia and Rachel, I want to say, and to all the young people out there, you are extraordinary. I have traveled this country, and what has inspired me the most is looking out at faces just like yours, beautiful young people who are part of the most progressive generation in the history of this country. That is who you are. Your generation is anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobia, anti-religious bigotry. You passionately understand that we have got to save the climate, save our planet from climate change for future generations. And your generation has inspired me and given me the energy to do what I have to do. To all of those who are watching, let me just make a couple of points, most of which you already know. Number one, in the next 80 or so days, we have got to do everything that we can to defeat the most dangerous president in the history of this country. Donald Trump is not just a racist or a sexist or a homophobe. He is not just a pathological liar. He is not just somebody who does not believe in science, which has cost us tens of thousands of lives in this country in terms of the pandemic, and is threatening the entire planet in terms of climate change. But even more than all of that, he is an authoritarian. He does not believe in our Constitution. Every day, in one form or another, he is undermining American democracy. So it is absolutely imperative that all of us work together, reach out to our friends, our neighbors, co-workers, and defeat Trump. But let me also say that defeating Trump is not all that this campaign is about. We have got to lay out a vision for the American people today who are struggling and hurting in a way that we have never seen for a very, very long time. But we have got to understand that as we speak, There are tens of millions of people who have recently lost their job. They are unemployed today. Many of them are worried about being evicted from their homes and their apartments. Many of them are worried about whether or not they're going to be able to feed their families. Many of them have no health care. And it is an outrage beyond outrage that we have a Republican Senate that has turned its back on these people. And above and beyond the immediate crisis that we face, we've got to take a hard look at where we are in America today. We have more income and wealth inequality than we have had in 100 years. How many people think it is acceptable that 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of American society? That during this pandemic, a few hundred billionaires have seen their wealth increase extraordinarily, while most Americans have seen a decline in their income. That is not the fabric of an American society that we believe in. We believe in a government that represents all of the people, not just a handful of wealthy individuals. And we have got to change that. We have got to change a corrupt political system in which big money continues to dominate what goes on. We've got to make sure that every worker in this country earns a living wage and raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. Make it easier for workers to join unions. Equal pay for equal work. Women should not be getting 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. We got to rebuild our infrastructure and create millions of good paying jobs. We have got to do what every other major country on earth does, and that is guarantee health care to all people as a human right through a Medicare for All single payer program. I am speaking to you right now from Burlington, Vermont. 50 miles north of me is a country called Canada. And in Canada, somehow or another, they have managed to figure out how everybody can go to any doctor they want, any hospital they want, and they do not have to take out their wallet or their credit card. And as a nation, they're spending 50% per capita on healthcare compared to what we are spending. We got to move in that direction. We have got to the young people here, say, we want you to get the best education that you can and not leave school $50,000 or $100,000 in debt. And when you're parents, I want you to know that there'll be the best childcare system in the world for your little ones that you can afford, and the best public school system in the entire world. This is America. We should be able to do that. And I know that all of us, especially the young people, are concerned about climate change. And thank you, young people, for leading this country, being the conscious of this country on the issue of climate change. And what we owe it to that generation and to the entire world is to have the courage. Guys, you're going to have the courage to take on the fossil fuel industry and tell them that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. And that's the struggle that we face. They are making a whole lot of money destroying the planet. We cannot allow them to do that. And then we have to deal with the whole issue, which I know is so important in Minnesota, Vermont, and all over this country, of criminal justice. You know, I know, that the current system is racist. The current system is broken. We cannot continue to have more people in jail than any other country on earth, disproportionately Black and Latino and Native American. And what we have to do, and I think Joe Biden understands this, we have to invest in our young people, decent jobs, decent education, not more jails and incarceration. And a whole lot of things we've got to do in criminal justice and private prisons and detention centers and cash bail and so forth and so on. And immigration reform. We have a president today who is demonizing 11 million undocumented people, many of whom are really frightened. And we have got to move forward with comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship and stand with the undocumented. So my point is, number one, we have got to elect Joe Biden and do everything we can to do that. But number two, the day after the election, we have got to rally the American people to create an agenda that works for all and not just large corporations and the 1%. And don't let anybody fool you. Our agenda, the progressive agenda, is the agenda of the American people. But we have to take on some very powerful special interests to implement that. So to the young people, thank you so much. You inspire me, and I love you dearly, and you are the future of our country. And we're very, very proud of you all. And to all of the old codgers like myself, we got a lot of work to do to protect these young people and the future of America. So we got the most important period in American history coming up between now and Election Day. Let's go out, let's work as hard as we can. Let's elect Joe. Let's transform the country. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Thank you so much for your voice, for all that you do as a senator and an advocate. And thank you so much for helping inspire generations and movements to fight for change in our country. We're grateful for your leadership, for your role in building party unity, and for pushing our party and our country forward to the country that we need. Thank you. I want to thank all of our amazing speakers and introducers from this morning. Claudia Moses and Rachel Zhang, DFL Chair Ken Martin, Senator Cory Booker, Congressman Mark Pocan, Senator Michael Bennet, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, Chair Lavora Barnes, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. What a stellar lineup of speakers we've heard from. It could have been an evening's primetime lineup. And here in Wisconsin, it's only 9:13 a.m. I want to thank everyone for participating today. And throughout this convention, delegates, you were elected or appointed because you power the work that makes us win. So keep up the good work and let's come out of this convention shot like a rocket. I want to highlight and invite everyone to join Campaign Academy 2020. You have a variety of amazing caucuses and council meetings to choose from. There's also a massive 4-day marathon of campaign trainings happening this week. The Democratic Party of Wisconsin, in partnership with ARENA, and now with the Biden campaign and Democratic Convention, have put together this training with everything from organizing to digital strategy to campaign data and beyond. You can learn tangible skills to take back to your community and to your campaigns to help make sure we win up and down the ballot in November. Everyone is welcome. It is free. And our first session begins at 11 a.m. Central Time this morning. If you go to wisdems.org/DNC, you can tune in live, and I will put that as a clickable link in the chat. This is a training that will also be recorded for, maybe we can make it available to the other states, but frankly, it is most exciting in its live form. So I recommend everyone go to that. Minnesota and South Dakota. If you look in the chat, you will see a link that is about to pop in for your next programming. So watch the chat right now and look for your link. It's probably in your other materials as well for the things you should do for the next hour. If you are from Wisconsin, from Michigan, from North Dakota, it is time for a coffee break, a stretch, maybe some yoga, let out the dog, do what you need to do. And then we will see you, we hope, at 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern for the Campaign Academy 2020 kickoff. And with that, the first ever 5-state virtual convention breakfast is closed. I drop my virtual gavel. I thank everyone for their amazing participation, and let's have another amazing day of the 2020 Democratic National Convention.